We're getting near to the end now.
Can't be far now, mate.
But things aren't getting any easier because if there's one fish that's going to be tough to catch, it's the next one.
This is the one that's going to make us or break us.
But fear ye not, my boy, because I've got a little trick up my sleeve. Well, the great rod race continues, and believe me, we're about to take on possibly the toughest leg of the challenge yet. I know we've had it tough with catfish if you've been watching the series, but believe me, you ain't seen nothing yet, because our next target species is a species called the Arctic char. Now, this is a very rare fish. You find it in deep, cold water. It's a very primitive order of fishes, and in fact, catching one on conventional methods with rod and line is going to be virtually impossible. Where will we find one? Well, we're very near now to a place called Cragwood House. It's on the banks of Lake Windermere, one of the big glacial lakes. And in Windermere, we'll certainly find char. But whether we catch them or not is another matter. Now, it's our plan to fish at Cragwood, firstly for the char and then for the pike. But we're not kidding ourselves. These char could be really, really tough. Nick, I think this could be a run.
Yes!
Absolutely magnificent.
What a bonus, it's a date.
Oh, Reedham and wheat browning. Double gudgeon.
Hey.
This fish is well over 20 pounds. Yeah. That's a good tench.
Oh, it's a perch.
Brace of carp.
It's a sea trout.
Yes! Look at that.
Yes, it's a catfish.
Well, it doesn't get any better than this, does it? Out afloat on Lake Windermere, England's biggest lake. And we're not going to take the easy option on this journey. We're going to try and catch an Arctic char, a tough challenge. I've called for a little bit of help, though. In the boat with me is local angler, Derek Bell, and he's a bit of a char expert, really. He's been doing this for most of his life, coming out on this huge expanse of water and tracking down these species and catching them through the summer months. Tell us a bit about the Arctic char. What sort of a fish is it and how big does it grow?
A good fish is a pound and a quarter. Yeah. They're very much like a salmonoid, look like a trout salmon. They vary in colour. When they're spawning, they go quite bright.
What do you think our chances are of catching today? Is it a good time to come?
It shouldn't be too bad. We're back end at season. It's a lot deeper down. It'll be harder to catch, but hopefully we'll get one or two.
Now, I would say this tackle that you're using to catch Arctic char is very, very unique. I've never seen anything quite like it in my life.
You have your main pole going out, your bamboo pole, which is about 16 foot long. Yeah. You have a bell on the end. You've got your main line clipped to the end of your rod.
Yeah.
And that goes basically down 60, 70 feet with a pound and a half weight on.
Yeah, yeah. Now, how do you get your fish in?
There's another line fastened to your main line, which is here on the boat on this pin here.
Yeah.
That's just to pull your main line in when you've got a fish on. And the main line goes down with 7 or 8 baits on, copper, brass, silver, all different colours, and hopefully we'll get one on.
So this is all a bit of a mystery to me, really. We're fishing in very deep, cold water with very unusual tackle, and we're after a species that looks a little bit like a trout or a small salmon. I think we ought to get on with the fishing.
Try, yep.
Get the tackle out.
Yep.
And as we go along, we'll look at into more detail of what exactly you've got in that box. I'm fascinated to find out.
Yeah.
Really fascinated.
Yeah. We got some on Saturday, we got 2. They were quite deep down. You can feel water, it's quite warm. They just seem to go down.
I suppose that's why they're called Arctic char, isn't it? They like the Arctic conditions.
Right, first thing to go down is my weight, which we drop down to that first ring, which is there, which goes on the pin. And then we come to bottom bait, which is first one, which is brass and silver. And hopefully we just throw that out. So that's onto the first ring. And then we pick that ring up and we drop that down. This is the main line going down now, 10 feet to the next ring, which you drop on there. Then you go for bait number 2 and just throw that out, hopefully.
So they're on quite a long line behind the main line.
15 foot more or less.
Yeah, so if I stop rowing now, they're all going to drop down and
They'll
tangle.
start dropping down, yes. This is the last bait, top bait.
So that little box that you've got there, it's actually purpose-made for housing all these lures and the lines.
Now this is when I'm dropping main line out now. This is my lazy line. So it's going down and you'll see rod go down, that's it. And that's more or less a perfect angle, I would think.
Is this your own boat?
Yeah, it's what they call a lake char boat.
Yeah, and you've obviously customised it for this style of fishing. You've obviously got little attachments here and there that make the whole process simpler. I believe some of the anglers come out here actually doing it to make money. Do you do it for money or just for the love of doing it?
I just do it for sport, just for a nice day out, relaxed fishing sometimes. Sometimes fetch wife out and just row around all day.
Dinger? Is there one on that side?
Yes, there's fish on there now, I think.
Oh, you're not in a rush to sort of pull it in?
No, let it stop on a while, make sure it's on.
Yeah.
Don't want to be pulling all them up, find there's no fish on.
Yeah, it's a lot of trouble, isn't it? It's still on, look, it's tapping away.
Yeah, I think we'll have a go at that one now.
Yeah, OK.
Pull that one in.
So you're going to pull your lazy line in.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a special technique involved here now, isn't there? You've got to...
Yeah, keep the boat going straight.
I keep going straight, and you make sure that everything doesn't get into a tangle.
Then you've no need to row that hard, really, now.
OK, I'll just ease up a bit.
And it's still on.
Oh, fingers crossed. I've never seen an Arctic char, and they're so rare, I wondered if I ever would see one. Is it on, mate?
Yeah.
Yes, we've got one. Yes. Oh, yes, and it's not a bad-looking one either. Well done, mate.
It's not a bad one.
Oh, we've got one. I can't believe we've only been out here 20 minutes. I can't believe it.
Well, this is an Arctic char, Mick. You
Yeah.
can tell by the coloration of the belly and the very fine spots.
Oh, yes.
And quite a deep black, dark back.
Yeah, it really is a beautiful fish. I mean, as you turn it to the light, there's so many different colours in there, isn't there?
And its fins are just going on white on the tips.
Oh,
Tip of
yes.
its fins.
Yeah. Oh, that is something quite unique to the species,
very
isn't it?
mild spots, light.
Yeah. It's got quite a large mouth, so it obviously is a predatory fish, isn't it?
Quite a big stomach on them.
Yeah. Would you say that one's been feeding particularly well? Is it
That's quite a nice fish, actually, is that? That'll be, what, 3/4 to a pound?
Yeah, yeah.
Very good fish this time of year.
Oh, it's quite a beautiful little fish, really. Well, this is really going well. We've allocated quite a long time to catch the Arctic char, and I've got to thank you, Derek, because we honestly thought we'd be out here for a couple of days. An Arctic char under our belts. We've got a bit of time pulled back, time to spend on the other species, and I tell you, this race is really on now. We're going to do it.
Well, after Mick's fantastic success with the Arctic char, which we're completely knocked out with, we've decided to stay on Windermere and try for pike. Now, this is one of the definitive pike venues in this country. It's a fantastic place. The fish here are just wonderful. However, the weather is, in some respects, just what we wanted. It's a real feel-good factor today, but I know from my own experience that this weather will probably work against us with the pike. It's not really what we want. It's probably better to have a chop and some grey skies, but the fishing's going to be very, very enjoyable. Ambleside is over to the right, which is at the north end of Windermere. This is the north side of the lake. And across that side, there's a reef that comes up from deep water. It's a good place for pike. It's going to be hard with this bright sunshine, and I've got a feeling the pike will be in relatively deep water, actually. We're going to fish lures initially. The pike here like lures, and if we troll and cast, hopefully we'll we'll maybe locate some fish. If that fails, then we can switch to static dead baiting. I think Mick might be a good tactic.
Well, I've started out on a shortish line, about 25 yards, and I'm slowly letting out more line here. And the more line I let out, the deeper the lure will troll behind the boat. And really, I'm searching the depths. I'm going down deeper and deeper until something happens. And eventually, you get to know your lures, and you know from the length of line you've got out and the engine speed, you know roughly what depth they're running at. When you're trolling, the most important thing to do is to set your drag. Now, if a pike should slam into this lure, there's hardly any stretch in this braided line. I've got a stiff rod, something's got to give, and that's got to be the drag on the reel. And this little star mechanism on the side, this star lever, adjusts the tension on the drag. See, that's far too loose. Just tighten it up a little bit. And I can, no, that's too tight, I can't budge it, so back off a little, and that's just about right. Now, when a pike does slam into this lure, if it's a really big fish and it goes ploughing off, there's a bit of give there so that the line doesn't break or the rod doesn't even break. It's important not to have a fixation with actually fishing on the bottom. A lot of the time the pike actually lie on the bottom and they won't venture up more than a few feet to attack your lure, but other days they'll come right up into the water. They might come up 10 or 20 foot for your lure. But I always think when the fishing's difficult, start with thinking that the pike are on the bottom and they're not going to be coming up.
In 135 feet now. We're just absolutely perfect here, Mick. Mid-20s. Really nice. We've just stopped in this bay for a second to try casting the lures because as we motored up the edge of it, I saw something roll. And in these flat, calm conditions, the pike here often do roll. And those sort of clues in a water as vast as this one really can't be ignored. If there's a pike around, we might be able to tempt it to have a nip at the lures.
Is that on the Mag Dog?
Yeah, it's on the Mag Dog, yeah. Good hit, mate.
Nice.
Really good hit. And it just shows combing this water meticulously, just drifting over the water we've just trolled, has produced a really solid take. He's right under the boat now. There he is. Oh, they're fabulous pike here, Mick, aren't they? Do you want to do the honours, mate?
Yeah.
Are you going to chin it?
I'll have a go.
Beautiful looking fish. Watch those hooks, mate. Well done.
Yeah.
There goes the hand of experience. You've done that a few times, Brownie, haven't you?
Well, if you get one of those hooks in your hand, you're in trouble. So when you grab it, you've got to really go for it in a firm fashion and don't mess about.
Well, that's what we mean about Windermere pike. Solid, beautiful
solid
fish.
That's been feeding.
It's not a monster.
Yeah, it's your fish. Do you want to hold it up?
Yeah, it's certainly a double figure fish.
Yeah, you got a good grip.
Yep.
Okay.
And there it is. Now, Mick and I are in the wonderful position, having caught a pike. Of course, technically we've succeeded in our challenge, but we've debated this in advance. We've got ahead of ourselves and we've bought ourselves some time. So we're actually going to fish on and try and catch a bigger pike. We decided this before today, but of course that's another species off our hit list. And the pike, what a fantastic fish it is. Maybe if we catch another one, we'll get Mick to talk us through the key characteristics, but that is one of the things that Windermere is famous for. Fantastic colours, beautiful fat pike, really aggressive fish, absolutely fabulous. Well, it just goes to show, Mick, never to ignore those clues. We saw that fish roll and our tactic paid off.
Yeah.
Theory into practice there, my boy.
That's right. Well done, mate.
The old mossy back. You can just imagine that fish lying down there among the boulders, a few strands of weed here and there, and it's invisible to those that come innocently swimming by. Wonderful fish.
Well done, Matt. It's another one off the list. Bit of self-indulgence now and a bit of pike fishing now. We've earned it. Well, this type of lure I'm trying at the moment is known as a jerkbait, and it hasn't really got a lot of action to it. You can reel it in and it doesn't do a great deal, so as the name implies, you've got to jerk it by rod tip action just to make it dart and keel from side to side. And really it's quite a skillful practice. At the moment it's coming in just under the surface and it's looking very realistic, just like a wounded fish. But the pike aren't very interested. Sometimes jerkbaits work when the fish are really active. At other times when they just don't really want to know, you've got to fish a lot deeper for them with different types of lures. But it's a lovely way of fishing and it's great when one hits it. Just standing in the sunshine, twitching it from side to side, and there's nothing like it when you feel that solid resistance as one pulls back.
This lot down here, Mick, I think that's quite a lot of prey fish tucked in behind some sort of snag.
Yeah.
And quite often you'll get predators waiting to nail them. So this area can be full of predators at times.
Matt! If this is a fish, it's a good one.
I was right about this spot, mate.
It's feeling more like I'm bringing in a piece of old rope now.
Well, it was bucking away. I'm sure
Yeah.
it's a fish.
I don't know, it's not fighting much, it's just heavy. Honestly, it's coming up so easy, it's not kicking or anything.
It's a
Oh,
pike!
it is a pike,
yes.
Oh, and
told you.
it's an angry old pike as well. Well, we started trolling bulldogs, and I said to Matt, the light's really gone. I'm going to put a brighter one on. And it's took it, look. It's not a bad looking pike either, is it?
Nice fish.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be a difficult one to get your hand around, isn't it?
Really nailed your lure as well. Look
know.
at that. Look at that. Really lively fish.
Yeah, don't risk your fingers, mate. Oh, yeah. Hey. We've done it. We've done it.
That's a nice Windermere pike, that one, Mick.
Yeah.
That's more like it.
Oh, yeah.
Woohoo! Nice
Well,
job, mate.
that's welcome. It's been a rough old day, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely marmelised.
I'm
your
glad we
lure.
stayed on for a few hours, are you?
Yeah. Change your tactics,
Yeah,
change your
can you put-
fortune.
Yeah, I've got the pliers. Pull it out that way.
That's it.
OK, get the lure out of the way for safety.
There you go.
Well, there's the lure it took. Let's see if I can get a good grip on it.
You ready?
Yeah, I've got a good grip. There we are. Pretty big Windermere pike, how about that?
Now this fish is Esox lucius, the northern pike, and you'll find it all over northern and western Europe and also in the northern parts of the United States. It's probably the archetypal freshwater predator, superbly suited to it, of course. Long streamlined body, lots of power built towards the back with its powerful tail, and it's built for short bursts of acceleration. Magnificent predator pursued by predator anglers all over the world, even though Brownie did think it was a lump of wood.
Well, I've been chasing them for over 30 years, and I can tell you this is a beautiful fish. It's a really good example of a pike. Look how thick he is across the back. That's a sign of a good fish that's been feeding well, growing fast. Slip it over the side. Oh. Give it a bit of time to recover, but yeah, it's powering. Whoa! Couldn't hold on to it. When they power away like that, you know they're strong and they're going to go down safely, because once they're out into this 10 square miles of water, you don't know what's going to happen to them, so you want to make absolutely sure they've recovered before you let them go. Great result. It's all right, chaps. It's one of ours.
I'd got big bulldog on. Beautiful fish. Another one. Fabulous.
Oh! And there's the lure he tried to eat.
Another one on the old bully.
Yeah.
Ooh, look at that. Mwah. There's it. Oh, he's got some spirit, boy. Woohoo! Look at that, one angry pike. Well, again, this lure was fished pretty deep and took the fish virtually off the bottom. Strange colour for a pike, Mick.
Yeah, isn't it?
That one was nice and easy.
It's quite plump.
Yeah, look at that in that golden evening light. Absolutely superb. Well, Mick, another success for the dynamic piking duo.
Yeah, you can't knock that, mate.
No.
Oh. That's it. Put it back
That
gently.
one wanted to swim, didn't it?
Yeah. Oh, that's the way to put them back, mate, while they're nice and fit.
It's been hard work today, boy.
It has, yeah.
Well, this is the part of the day that's always very satisfying, but slightly tinged with sadness, because you've got to go in. But we've had a good time, all right. Fantastic weather earlier on. Awesome. Not necessarily the best fishing weather, but we did catch in it. And then, of course, when the weather changed and the clouds came over, wasn't mixed fish an absolute belter. An upper double-figure pike, probably as good as we could have hoped for, to be fair. Well, it's back on the road because the Great Rod Race continues. We've still got some species left to catch. Not that many days left to do it in, so we've got to get a wiggle on, but I've thoroughly enjoyed it here. I'm going to go back to Cragwood now, have a good dinner, good night's sleep, and we'll be ready for the morning.
Well, this is really going well.
Got ahead of ourselves, and we've bought ourselves some time.
Bit of time pulled back, time to spend on the other species, and I tell you, this race is really on now. We're going to do it.
Well, for this latest leg of the Great Rod Race, we've driven across the Shropshire countryside and we've come here to this fantastic secret location. And we're going to be fishing for a pretty difficult to catch species. And Mick is the one who's volunteered to do it. And let me tell you, folks, if he cannot catch this fish, then he's in big trouble. In fact, I'm going to sack him. Now, he doesn't know what he's fishing for yet, but he'll probably get an idea, Mick, when I start to give you your gear, OK? Right. Now, this should give you your first clue.
After the mini species again, are we?
We are, yeah,
Yeah.
but you're not allowed to use the net end. You've got to use the bamboo pole as a rod. You've got to catch this
Oh, I
fish
see.
on rod and line.
Well, that
OK?
takes me back a bit.
I've got you some bait. So there's
Yeah,
your bait,
yeah.
some little tiny pinkies.
Oh, they are small fish we're after then.
OK,
Lovely.
here's your keep net.
Ah, I had one of them when I was about 7.
All right.
Still got it, actually.
And you'll be float fishing today.
Yeah.
This is your line. It's very
Yeah.
fine, and in fact, in your case, I doubt whether you'll actually be able to see it. but
Matt,
there is some
I
line.
can't see it.
Now, these are tiny sized 26 hooks. And finally, Mick, as your coup de grace, I've got a little packet of floats for you. So choose your weapon.
Ah.
You want a dark tip one or one of the pink ones?
Oh, well, we're fishing against brown water, so I'll put a red tip on.
All right, well, there you are. Have you guessed what your target fish is yet?
Well, it's still water. It could be a rough, maybe stickleback.
Very good.
Is it
Well,
one of
I
those?
suggest you go down there and have a look yourself.
Well, I'm up for a laugh.
Let me show you where the pool is.
Right. Got my glasses.
Well, the pool's just down here. It's a lovely autumn day.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, now I don't want to tell anybody about where this is.
All right.
Because when they see this fantastic fish you're going to catch,
Yeah.
they'll all want to come in.
They'll be bivvying out for these. Oh, is this the
Now,
swim?
Well, this is a lovely old pond. I mean, it's 300 or 400 years old. It's been here forever. And there aren't many spots you can get into, actually. But this is one of them, and I thought maybe you could just fish underneath the trees here.
Yeah, well, the first thing I've got to do is, well, tie a hook length, really, and get me float on.
Could take some time, that.
Yeah, well, I'll make an attempt, and you can bait the swim, do something useful.
OK.
The viewers haven't yet seen this, me with my glasses on. The hard part's going to be getting one of these hooks out of the packet. Yeah, and there's one come out. That was more by luck than judgment that came out. Now, it is so teeny, I think it must be about no more than a 16th of an inch across. And I've got to do a special...
Even the ducks are laughing at you now.
Now, what you should do when you're tying a spade end is line the hook up, make a loop in the hook length material, lay it parallel to the shank. I've actually gripped the shank and the loop now, and I've actually wound 4 times. I've gripped it, the knot very tightly. I've now got to pass the loose end through the loop. And normally you would wet it before you pulled it tight, but I can't get my tongue anywhere near it. And I've done it. They are at size 26, tied to hair that is, well, a line that is so thin I can hardly see it. Well, I reckon I've done a good job of that.
You think Bob
Yeah.
Nudd would be proud of you?
He would, yeah. It's like one of those things you do on the Generation Game, isn't it?
It is. Oh, let's have a look at it, my love. Let's have a look at this. It's a little bit curly-whirly.
I'd give you about, I think 3, my love. 3 for that one, yes.
Oh, unfair, unfair. I don't know what's going to happen. Don't even know what species are there. So this is going to be as big a surprise now for me as it is for you watching.
I'm very impressed.
All right, well, let's get down to the swim. There's one thing, Matt. I am going to insist on complete silence here because, as far as I know, this has never been attempted on television before. And I'm going to put in a rod dress because I suspect it could be a bit of a waiting game, this.
I have it on very good authority that there are sticklebacks in here. Yes.
OK.
I've never fished it myself. I've often been tempted, but I'm told it is a stickleback haven.
And it's all on the cast. I've got to watch them overhead branches. And the bait's in and it's sinking slowly, very, very slowly. The float is lying flat, so I'm just watching the line at the moment. You see, at this stage, Matt, the viewers expect us to get one straight away. But it doesn't always happen like that.
That's right, Mick. It normally takes weeks, doesn't
It
it?
normally takes weeks.
In this instance, this is in real time and you're going to see it as it happens.
Little and often, that's the key to catching fish.
Was that just an air bubble or was that a stickleback
I'm
rolling?
not sure. It looked like a fish rolling in the swim.
Yeah. I know why Matt didn't want to do this now. He knew something. Yeah, Matt, it's going.
That looks like a bite, Mick.
He's got it. Hang on, give me a bit longer. It's going, isn't
He's
it?
dropped it.
No, it's going. See it running?
I'm not sure whether that's just surface drift,
No,
mate.
no, it's going.
Oh, it is, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
God, it's a
Yeah.
sail away. Hit it, man, hit
Hang
it, go on.
Let's give it time. Oh, I got it, I got it.
Oh,
Oh, well,
don't make a meal of it.
hardly what you call scrappers.
No,
are they?
but let me tell you, you've succeeded, Mick, and
It is a stickleback.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
Let me just show this to everybody back at home. That is a fish you don't see very often in British waters anymore. When we were kids, there used to be loads and loads and loads of these. That's a stickleback. Now, Mick, there are several varieties of sticklebacks, and the number of spines is the differentiating factor.
Yeah.
This one, I would imagine, is a 3-spine stickleback, because that is the most common.
I think the idea is that when a predator grabs them, they stick all these little spines and sharp bits out, and the predator just spits them out again.
Well, look at that. It's fairly hooked in the mouth,
Yeah.
caught on rod and line.
Yeah.
A genuine English stickleback, part of a strain of sticklebacks that have probably been in this lake for 100 years. And let me tell you, although this has been a lot of fun to do this tiny little fish is just as important to us as a catfish or a big carp or a barbel, because if we hadn't caught one of these, then we wouldn't have succeeded in the challenge. So well
That's
done,
right.
mate.
Thanks, mate. Let's get him in the
I
keep
will
net.
put him in the keep net.
Well, Matt, I'm going to prove it's not a fluke. I'm going to catch another one.
Well, you're into it now, aren't you?
I'll tell you what,
We
the-
mustn't stay too long because we've got
No,
other
I
things
know.
to do.
to sit here and relive the pleasure of fishing like I used to when I was about 7 years of age. This is how it all started for me.
People have said you haven't moved on.
Yeah.
It's sliding away. Don't make a meal of it. Strike, strike, go on.
I've got it.
Oh, yeah, good lad, good lad. Now, be careful.
It's about the same size as the other one.
There it is, a perfect example. Well, there you are, the fruit of Brownie's labour. 3 sticklebacks caught in double quick time. It only took you 2 days to catch them, Mick. Well done. No, it took him about 10-15 minutes, just like when you were a kid. Absolutely brilliant. Another species off the tick list, and as much fun as it's been, I'm glad we've got this out of the way, because now we've got to move on.
We've just conked out.
A great rod race has just come to a grinding halt, folks.
Anybody could conk out.
Well, this is it, Mick, Furnace Mill Fishery. And we've come here to catch another one of the carp variants, which is a species, or not a separate species, but it's a variant called the ghost carp. Now, the ghost carp is an odd-looking fish. It's a fairly pale version of the carp, very distinctive in its appearance. And I think the problem we're going to have today is not so much catching carp, it's actually catching the one that we want.
Yeah.
Well, this one's called the Mucky Meadow Pool, and it's named after the famous Mucky Meadow on the River Severn at Bewdley. And I reckon, Mick, these are the 2 swims that we should fish. I mean, it doesn't matter which we go on. One of the most important skills in fishing is plumbing the depth, because most fish feed on the bottom or near the bottom. And when you come to these commercial fisheries, there's a lot of fish in them, but they are heavily fished. And as a result of that, what tends to happen is the fish become quite shy biting. So getting your float set at exactly the right depth is very important, and so too is shotting the float right down. Now, the way to plumb the depth is to use a thing called a plummet. Basically, it's almost like a little bell, and underneath it's got some cork. So you pass the hook through the hole in the top of the plummet there, and then literally embed the hook in the cork like that. The next thing to do is to lower the plummet in where you're going to fish. Now, I'm going to fish very close in here on this lake, just beyond the marginal shelf. So I'm going to lower the float in, and you can see automatically that the float is lying on the surface of the water, and it tells me basically that the water there is shallower than I've got my float set. Let's just try a bit further out. Now you can see the float's now standing up, so that tells me we've got a slope there in the margin, but I want to fish very close in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove some of the depth from the float and bring it down, let's say 3 or 4 inches, and try again. And there it is, perfect. So I know that that is the exact depth of the area of the swim that I'm fishing. Now, if you lay too much line on the bottom in these fisheries, you'll get little dips on the float, but the float won't submerge. If you fish too far off bottom on many occasions, you won't get the bites off the bigger fish. So getting it dead right is very, very important. Well, as you've probably gathered, we've moved round to the other side of the lake simply because we've seen so many fish moving over here. Now, what I think's attracting them is a small outflow and mixed fishing right next to it now, where there's some fresh water entering the lake, and that kind of oxygenation of the water often attracts fish to it. So if you're going to fish commercial waters, always pay attention to any water coming into the lake. As far as feeding's concerned, I'm just going to give you a bit of advice, really. I've got a bit of a secret weapon up my sleeve. if you fish commercial fisheries, it's always worth fishing with cat meat. Now, cat meat's a very underrated carp bait. There are lots of brands that you can buy. It does catch a lot of fish. The sort of brands you're looking for are the ones with good, firm, meaty chunks. You don't want the stuff in jelly, and you don't want stuff that's going to disintegrate on the hook. And I've also got with me some corn and some hemp. Here's the advice about feeding. You'll often hear it said that when you're fishing, you should feed little and often. In other words, small amounts of bait quite frequently, and that's good advice. But on commercial fisheries where you've got a lot of fish and you've got the bigger fish down on the bottom, you need to get the bait down on the deck. And the way that you do that is to feed fairly big handfuls of bait. And I'm going to throw in a few decent handfuls of each bait to the area that I'm going to be fishing. 3 or 4 of hemp, probably just 1 of sweet corn. And then with the cat meat, a few lumps of meat. That's perfect. Looks a good fish, Mick.
Did you see it roll then, Matt?
I did, yeah. I just saw it roll, yeah. It looks a beauty.
I'm just hoping it doesn't go towards that aerator.
No, you'll be all right now, I think. Great fishing, isn't it?
I'm having a bit of trouble holding on to this one. Head's out the water. Yes! Oh, she's in. Just about fits in there. Well, that was fantastic. They told me these Furnace Mill can't fight, but that was unbelievable. Right, I'll get it up onto this soft bit of grass here just to take a close look at it. Oh, it's a chunky old fish as well. And there's the hook, right in the end of the snout. Well, there it is. It's not the ghost carp we're after, but it's a mirror carp of probably 7 or 8 pounds or so, in excellent condition. Absolute fighting fit. Oh, I can hardly hold on to it. It's a real chunky little fish. But we've caught one of them before, a much bigger one. I better put her back in the water. There she is. Oh. It's a rather quick return, but I couldn't do much about it, really.
I wonder whether this one's a ghost carp. Another nice fish, though.
Oh, Matt's just caught a perch. Anybody can catch a perch.
Well, that one went off at a fair old speed, didn't it? There it is. Another solid, chunky little fish.
I wonder if this is the ghost carp, Matt. Well, I've just got a glimpse of it, and it's not the one we're after. This one's ready for the net. Pristine little common carp.
The most important thing when you're playing a fish like this is to let the tackle do the work. That's what it's designed for. So try and use the rod as a spring, and don't be in too much of a hurry to bring the fish in, because these commercial fishery carp are real good scrappers. Gotcha.
I could happily do this for a few weeks.
Tell it's not a ghost carp.
I'm just beginning to wonder how many of these we've got to catch before we get a ghostie.
Well, we've caught plenty of carp, but we're adopting really what you might call the blunderbuss approach. We're just trying to literally fire as many things at the target as we can and hoping one of them will come up trumps. And it ain't working, quite honestly. So what we're going to do is we're going to try the rifle shot. Now, we've seen fish drifting around on the surface of the pool, and some of them are ghost carp. So how about this? We're going to get some floating dog biscuits. We're actually going to fish for these fish on the top and cast at the ghosties. That's what we're going to do.
There's one over there, look, man. See it?
Yeah.
It's quite a big one, actually.
Yeah, good fish.
I think this is a good move, actually, because we've wasted a lot of time, really.
Now, this is a tactic that I've used here before to catch the carp on the surface. And believe it or not, Mick, they love the chum mixers here, but they're quite shy of them.
Yeah.
And in fact, I've found that using a proper fly
Yeah.
Once you've got the carp feeding on the surface, you can actually use a proper fly to target them.
They're going to prefer a bit of old fluff to a tasty old dog biscuit.
Sometimes they have. I don't say they prefer it, but they actually seem to take the flies more confidently.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they are used to taking flies in this pool. Remember, we're right here in the Wyre Forest. You know, it's a beautiful spot. And the thing is, quite often there's flies and things dropping on the surface of the water.
So it's a natural thing for them to do, really.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a selection of carp flies here in this box. There's all sorts, including things like hoppers, daddy longlegs, hawthorn fly imitations, the sort of things that actually get blown onto the surface of the water. What I've found to be better here, however, are things like these buzzers here. Now, these are basically imitations of mosquito larvae, which is known as a buzzer. I've also got some others. I've got some little beetles here, look. Because don't forget, we're right by the forest, and things like beetles and caterpillars will get blown onto the water. So the fish here are real opportunists. They're quite used to eating all manner of terrestrial insects that get blown on the water, as well as the ones that live under the surface. One behind it. Just taking the biscuit behind it. Come on, come on.
Well, the float fishing's not working. I can see them coming up for the dog biscuits that Matt's putting out. So I'm taking the float off and I'm going to free line a dog biscuit. And I think it's worth a try.
He's right underneath it. Come on. Oh. Look off it. Well, I've just been blindsided by yet another mirror carp. I could see a ghost carp out there, and that was the one I was aiming for. This mirror just shot straight up underneath it and nailed the fly first. Gotcha. And that's a beautiful mirror carp.
There's been a ghostie going round with a mirror. And what they're doing, they're taking turns at taking the biscuits, and I think what I'm going to do is just wait till it's the ghostie's turn and then flick the bait in front of them and just see if it works. Here they come. This is the moment they're coming. It's... Yes, got it. Matt, I've got a ghostie.
Brilliant.
There's been a ghostie and a mirror swimming together in a pair.
Yeah.
And I've been watching what they do.
Yeah.
They're taking alternate turns at taking a floater.
And I've got the white one on.
And it was the ghostie's turn, and he come up and he took it as good as gold.
Brilliant.
I'm worried because I've had about 12 fish so far on this hook link. Oh, yes, we got it.
Right, well, Mrs. Mills has sparked one up on the old Joanna, and she's singing "Roll Out the Barrel, Mate."
Bring out the fat lady.
Well, I will describe it happily for you.
Oh, Matt.
Mixing quite a state of excitement, actually. This has got all the characteristics of a normal mirror carp. As you can see, it's got mirror carp scales, but it's an incredible mixture of colours. It's almost like a photographic negative, and that's why it's called the ghost carp, because its head's got this peculiar shading on it, which almost makes it look like a skull when it's in the water. And then it's got this lovely combination of sort of creamy off-white and pale yellow and little bits of orange in it. And this one, Mick, is a perfect specimen. It's fin perfect, its mouth's well formed. You've done really well there, mate.
Well, I say there's certain moments that you don't forget in fishing, and this for me is one of them. I can't remember being this excited for ages. Oh, she's fabulous.
I'll put that there and you can slip her back.
Okay. Oh, he's putting his fin up, look at that. I suppose it's better than...
Well done, mate.
Well, one very happy fisherman.
Well done, mate.
Thanks, mate.
You've hauled us out the cart there.
Yeah, but we can't hang about. We've got to get into the next one.
Now, the Great Rod Race isn't just about catching great big colourful fish, it's also about catching some of the mini species, and that's why we've come down here to the River Severn near Bewdley. Now, our target here is a very rare fish. It's called the ruff. Some people know it as the Pope or the Tommy ruff, but basically what we're talking about is a small, insignificant, dull brown little fish, a little bit like a perch with a pointed dorsal fin and points on its gill covers. But I'll tell you what, I haven't seen one of these fish for years. They really are quite rare. And to be honest, my worry is that this is the species that could trip us up on the challenge now.
Well, then on the River Severn here at Bewdley, I'm using a technique that I used to use years ago when I lived in this area, and that's just trotting down with a stick float. And it's a lovely way of fishing, just watching the float glide down the current very, very slowly. And just as I get to the end of the swim, I can put the rod down and just watch the float for a few minutes and see if I can get a bite while it's laying still. If it doesn't work, I just bring it in, cast it out into the swim, let it trot down again, let it lie at the end of the swim for a few minutes. Now the ruff isn't going to be very exciting when you see it. If you see it, it's a little fish, probably 2 to 3 inches long. Looks a bit like a perch, although I don't think it's related to the perch. To be quite honest, it's quite a boring fish. It's the one that you don't usually want to catch because it swallows the hook and you have to put a new hook on. But we must get it to complete the full set for this challenge.
Well, I'm feeding a mixture of casters and hemp about a third to halfway across the river. And I just want to get a few fish feeding, really, and see what turns up, because it will at least enable me to draw fish from downstream. And if that doesn't work, probably my best bet would be to use a straight ledger down the side in the slack water. And that can be particularly good for ruff, certainly when the river's in flood and there's a lot of colour around. But I've just got a feeling most of the fish today are going to be where there's a little trickle of flow. So I'm going to keep plugging away on that line. And I think Mick is going to fish close in. He's got a stick float on, which he can't fish at the sort of range I'm fishing. So I guess he'll be covering the near area, and between us, we'll be trying both options. So we'll see which one works.
Well, the River Severn is full of perch and roach like these. Basically, the perch is a predator, one of the smaller predators, doesn't grow particularly big. And the roach, well, that spends its time just hoovering up whatever it can from the bottom. And I must say, in the River Severn, it's probably mainly anglers' baits. Of course, it's trying to keep out of the way of the perch, otherwise the perch will eat it. Typical River Severn fish, good quality and typical size. Always nice to catch. It is an unusual catch. It does happen from time to time. A big water snail has gone round the weights on the line and closed on it. I suppose you could say it's had a heavy meal. There's a little man. Oh, this is quite a small fish, actually. It's quite a small fish. I've got one. Oh, wait till Matt sees this. I've got a ruff. Matt, I've got a ruff.
I don't believe it. It is.
Yeah, let me unhook it.
You marvellous
How
man.
about that?
I can't believe you have as well. It is.
Well, there it is. I've got one at last. Here, Matt, a ruff.
Mate, I never thought I'd be so pleased to see one.
And as I said, it's rather like a perch. It's got a different dorsal fin. It's slightly longer, but it's very much like a perch. I haven't seen one of these for quite a while, actually, and it's been quite a challenge to get one. But there it is.
Well, I can't believe it, because I'll tell you now, mate, with the capture of that fish, it might seem a tiny, insignificant little fish. We are rocking and rolling, and we ain't gonna lose this challenge now. We're gonna do it.
No.
I'll tell you now, we are gonna do it. How about that, girls? The whiskery old face of Mick Brown.
It's not true what they're saying.
The right result. That is a great piece of fishing. A great piece of fishing.
Thanks, mate.
Well done, mate. Well, here we are. This is Catton Park near Ulriwas in Tamworth, and we're actually coming here to fish for bream. And this, Nick, is your swim. Well, this is my swim. It doesn't look that much different from Mick's, really. I think it's a good area because we've got the wind blowing towards us. It's not a heavy breeze, but might just be enough to bring the fish over this way. And the thing about bream is it's all got very interesting, really. Many years ago, when we were bream fishing, we used to use what we'd now term classic bream tactics with a swim feeder rod, ground bait, squats, casters, that sort of thing. And then all of a sudden, carp anglers, when they started using lots of trout pellets, found that they were catching bream by accident. And it's changed the whole thing, really. So the approach I've got today, I'm going to use a single feeder fishing rod, which is classic bream tactics. But I'm going to use a little bit of the carp bait type approach. So I'm going to blend together two methods of fishing. And I've got a whole array of bait here, which I hope the bream will find exciting. Now, first and foremost among them, I've got these pellets here. And these, I think, are what are going to attract the bream into the swim and keep them here. I've got two sizes. I've got these trigger pellets, which I know that the bream on this lake love, and I've also got some very small betaine pellets, which will be ideal for the feeder. I'm going to put out lots of bait samples, red maggots, hemp, small pieces of luncheon meat, so I can keep ringing the changes on the hook. But the main thing is I'm going to try and build up a carpet of bait in the swim, and that carpet is going to be pellets and ground bait. First thing to do is to mix them together dry and just tip the ground baits in, and now we'll put in the brown crumb. Start off by giving the dry ingredients a good whiz round. Well, that's nicely mixed now. I also happen to know that bream have got a sweet tooth and they love this liquid molasses, so what I'm going to do is go well over the top here and just add loads of this stuff. It's a very sweet, dark, natural product is molasses, and the fish love the taste of it. And this ground bait isn't quite damp enough yet, so I'm going to add some lake water to it. I'm not going to need loads. Now, what I've got there is a good damp ground bait. I can squeeze it into a ball and break it back down with one hand. So that's my ground bait done. Now, one of the things that bream anglers have tended to do over the years is to use a swim feeder to get out a carpet of bait, and that's a very good technique, and I'm going to use it myself. But the thing I've never been able to understand is when time is of the essence and you want to get bait out quickly, why mess about casting a small feeder if you want to get a better bait down? And once again, it's the carp anglers that have provided the solution. Now, you've seen me use this before in the Great Rod Race. This is what we call a spod. And essentially it's a bait rocket. You fill it with bait, when it hits the water, it tips upside down and the bait pours out of the bottom. Now, I think this is brilliant for bream fishing because although carp anglers tend to use it for putting out particles and pellets and things, you can actually put virtually dry ground bait in here and create a lovely soft carpet. Short circuits the whole process of having to cast about 20 feeder loads to get a bed out there. It's brilliant. Right, well, the ground bait's absolutely perfect now. Now, you might be wondering, how am I going to hit the same distance with my spod and my feeder? I made up my feeder rig, cast out into the swim, and used the line clip on the reel. I then took that rod, laid the rod on the ground, paid out all the line until I came up against the line clip position. Then I went and got my spod rod, laid that down, and placed the line in the clip. So these two will cast to exactly the same distance. So that's 2 ground bait. Let's put out a third. I'm lining up on a tree on the far bank with the spod and with the feeder. So I'm going to drop this stuff on a tanner every time. Now, using the spod, I can build up a small bed of bait very, very quickly, and then I can keep topping it up with the feeder. We'll put out a bit of meat. Now for some pellets. Now, these betaine pellets are one of the best all-round fishing baits I've ever come across. Well, that's a fair bit of bait out there. So in summary, I'm using two different types of baits, traditional bream baits like red maggots, casters, worms and sweet corn, but I'm also using carp baits, small betaine pellets, trigger pellets. So two different styles of baits put out there with this spod. And remember, to get the accuracy, I started off by casting out my feeder rod and clipping the line. I then measured the spod up against the feeder by lying the two rods together and clipped it so that the spod will land in exactly the same place as the feeder does. So we've got top bait, we've got good accuracy. All we need now is a bit of inspired fishing. With any luck, we'll have another one off the list.
Well, by no stretch of the imagination could you call me a bream expert, but I have had a go at this now and again. I've decided to make my own mind up about how to fish this. I'm not going to copy Matt's. So I'm just going to use pretty standard bream tactics, really. Just keep casting the feeder to the same spot every 5 minutes or so and keep topping up the bait that's being dropped out there. Just have to see if it works for me. There's a bite there. Oh, I think it's just a small fish, a roach or... Oh, I want it to come off, that one has. Well, I thought I had a small fish on then for a few seconds, and I definitely did, because here's the evidence. When I cast out, there was 4 maggots on there. I've come back with 2, and as you can see, they're really well chewed and stretched. So I'm getting some bites, and that's always a good sign when you're bream fishing. So my confidence is rising a bit here. I mean, people expect professional anglers like us to do well all the time, but the truth is we don't. We have bad spells and good spells, and I'm just coming into a really good spell now and things are coming together, so I'm feeling quite confident on the bream.
Yeah. Oh, this fish is kiting hard over to the left, towards Brownie's Swim. Absolutely beautiful weather, but not necessarily the best for bream fishing. Much prefer it overcast with a good ripple on, good blow, but the fish are certainly responding. I'm wondering whether this is a bream, actually. It's starting to kick back a bit now. Oh, no, it's a big perch. Oh, that is a nice one, too. I thought it was a bit lively to be a bream. That's a beauty. And it feels like a good one, the way it's pulling back. It's really hanging on. Come here. Gotcha. Nice fish. There you go. Fabulous fish, that is. Well, these are cracking perch by anyone's standards, they really are. And there's the classic perch bait just dangling out of the corner of his mouth. This is almost certainly another perch, the way it's shaking its head. Oh, see that? A spiky dorsal just sliced the surface. Cracking fish, these. Let's pop this one back. I'm absolutely amazed by the number of perch I'm catching. The sun's going down now, and the sport's getting better and better, as you'd expect, but it is so bright. The perch is a really bold, aggressive fighter. It's got incredible manoeuvrability under the water because it's got a large crest-like dorsal fin, and it uses that like a sail to turn at high speed. It's another lovely perch. Incredible fishing. Oh yes, that's a lovely fish. Now that's a perch, certainly over 2 pounds. The perch is a very voracious predator. It's got a large mouth for its size, and a perch like this one, well, it would certainly eat fish up to 4 or 5 ounces in weight, quite large fish, and it will chase its prey down and harry it and nudge it and lunge at it until eventually it gets what it wants, and that's a meal. Well, that's a super fish, isn't it? What a cracking day. Might not be catching many bream, but it's been a red letter day, this. Well, I've been fishing now for about 15 minutes, I suppose, and I'm making regular casts with the feeder. to try and top up that carpet of bait out there. And I'm putting in a selection of bait samples as well as ground bait. I'm using an open-ended swim feeder. Put some ground bait in the bottom, compress it so you've got a plug in the bottom, and then you put in a selection of baits, a few pellets and hemp, a few red maggots, chopped worm, whatever you like, and then you put another plug on the top. So what you end up with is a bait sandwich. And when you cast that into the swim, the water attacks it, the ground bait explodes, and all that feed starts to come out of the feeder. And you can twitch the feeder back to bring your hook bait right into that little pile of bait after about 2 or 3 minutes after the ground bait's dissolved. Feels like a bream. Could be in business here. Yep, that's what we're after. Now, bream aren't renowned for their fighting capabilities. They tend to come in a little bit like a wet sack. And this is a fairly dull sort of skating sensation. Right. Let's have a look at this fish. I felt really confident about catching one of these. And that confidence has been justified. There's a lot of bream here at Catton Park, and I felt sure with the methods that we were employing we were going to get one. And here it is. Now this is the bronze or common bream. There are actually reputedly 2 species of bream in the British Isles. This one, the common or bronze bream, and a fish called the silver bream, but our waters do abound with these. Now, it's a very thin, elliptically shaped fish, very slim across the back, but very deep bodied. And you can see by the shape of its mouth and the direction it's pointing in that this is a fish that's accustomed to grubbing around on the bottom for its food. Well, this is a decent bream and a lovely fish to catch. Well, that's a good result. The problem with bream fishing is you do get covered in slime. Here we go again. Oh, this is great fishing now. Starting to get regular bites. And this one feels like a decent fish as well. Nice golden flanks. Oh, job's a good one. Well, that's a nice looking fish, that one. A proper bream. Just gliding in. Ah, proper bin lid. Well, that's a really mint bream.
Well, I've been getting plenty of fish up to now, but Matt seems to be getting the bigger fish, and I had a little chat with him, and Matt's done a lot more bream fishing than me, and he said the secret is in the little pellets he's putting in. He's putting in some little teeny pellets called betaine pellets, and I've just put some out in my swim.
Getting a good stamp of fish now.
Well, it's my turn to latch into one. It's been a bit slow on my side of the swim. Well, they're not noted for the fighting qualities. I think the interest in bream fishing is just that they can be quite difficult to catch at times. And just really overcoming the problems of trying to catch them is probably what makes it fascinating. And they have been quite difficult for me today. Matt's had a couple. This is my first one. Well, let's just have a look at her in the evening sun. That's a lovely bream there. They're usually quite slimy, but this one is, it's hardly got any slime on it at all. This one only weighs a couple of pounds. You know, these can actually grow to almost 20 pounds, and one of that size must look like a dustbin lid. I'm gonna just slip it back.
I don't know about you, I'm absolutely whacked.
Yeah, I'm worn out, mate.
It's been marvellous, really, and getting towards this stage of the rod race, I will tell you a very interesting fact, Brownie, and that is that, in fact, we have already done over 3,200 miles, folks. So how about that? It's quite a long way, but there's a way to go yet, a few more miles to do. Having said that, I've got to say, Mick, I'm feeling pretty confident.
Well, early on, I said we'd get about 85% of the species, but, you know, I'm so confident now, I reckon we're going all the way, man. I really do.
I think we're going to do it as well.